Welcome to the Side Hustle to Small Business podcast powered by Hiscox. I'm your host, Sanjay Parekh. Throughout my career, I've had side hustles, some of which have turned into real businesses. But first and foremost, I'm a serial technology entrepreneur. In the creator space, we hear plenty of advice on how to hustle harder and why you can sleep when you're dead. On this show, we ask new questions in hopes of getting new answers. Questions like, how can small businesses work smarter? How do you achieve balance between work and family? How can we redefine success in our businesses so that we don't burn out after year 3? Every week, I sit down with business founders at various stages of their side hustle to small business journey. These entrepreneurs are pushing the envelope while keeping their values. Keep listening for conversation, context, and camaraderie. Today's guest is Sarah Martin McConnell. Sarah is a singer and songwriter, a creative aging champion advocate, performer, and musician. Sarah is also the founder of Music for Seniors, a nonprofit based in Nashville, Tennessee. Music for Seniors has served over 30,000 older adults yearly and launched its first chapter affiliate in Knoxville. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so delighted to be here.
So I'm excited to have you on here because I think the area that you're working in and have worked in is so interesting because, you know, all of us hopefully are going to get older over time. But also that you've started this as a nonprofit, which for our show here is a little bit unusual. So we'll dig into all of that in a minute. But first, I'd love for you to give us a little bit about your background and what got you to where you are today.
Well, I've been a professional musician my whole adult life, really. And when I moved to Nashville in 1988-89, I spent many years writing and performing. I had some cuts from my writing co-writes. And then everything changed when Hurricane Katrina hit the Mississippi Gulf Coast and my mom, Marge, was blown to Nashville by the hurricane. She had just been diagnosed with mid-stage Alzheimer's, and I started taking live music to share with mom and her group at her day services program. And one day, after a wonderful, just transformative session with a group of older adults, a light bulb went off. This needs to be a community-wide effort to connect musicians and older adults through live music. And that was how the idea was born.
Yeah, I love that. Let me ask you some questions though. First,
Sure.
You're a singer-songwriter. What kind of music have you written? And is there a song that we might know?
Well, I wrote a lot with a beloved artist here in Nashville who is now no longer with us, Walter Hyatt. We did a lot of co-writes. Just this past Christmas, I released a Christmas single called Every Heart Goes Home for Christmas. And that is out there. And probably by the time this podcast is aired, my collection of songs, Love Songs to the Universe, will be released. And that's an eclectic blend. But I write country, jazz, folk. I love all those genres. And you might have heard some of my cuts on some of Walter Hyatt's albums.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I love that. We'll have to go check those songs out. Okay, so let's dig into Music for Seniors. So the light bulb went off. You had that aha moment and decided to pursue this thing. Why did you decide to start it as a nonprofit instead of a for-profit? Because I think you could have easily done it that way too. So why the choice that way?
You know, that is really an interesting question. And someone asked me that early on. But as an older adult, I actually went back to graduate school and got my master's in social work. And when I conceived the idea, I knew that it had to be for social profit, not for my own profit. That would change everything. It would change the whole feeling of the work. And I wanted it to be for the good of everyone. I was not interested in making a lot of money doing the work.
Right. Right. Is this the first time you've done anything like this that's entrepreneurial being a singer-songwriter obviously is an entrepreneurial venture, but like as an organization, is this the first time you've done something like this?
I had a Christmas caroling company, the Caroling Troubadours, for probably 30 years.
Wow.
And that was a for-profit company. I
Yeah.
started it in Dallas when I lived there. I had auditioned at a club, and it was sometime late October, early November, and it was in the middle of the day. And I don't know if you've ever been in a bar during the day, but you don't want to go there. You know, when the lights go down and the stage is lit up, it's a whole different place. But I walked out of there going, oh my gosh, I don't even want to perform here. I did a single. And I looked around and thought, where would I really love to be performing right now? And I thought, okay, I was in Dallas, Neiman Marcus. Yeah, the store is beautiful and decorated.
That's true.
I'll go in and tell them, let me stroll through the store in black knickers and a white shirt and a big red bow and sing Christmas carols. So I went and talked to the marketing director. And she was like, yes, Sarah, this is a great idea, but do it as a trio. And so that first year, my clients were Lord & Taylor, Neiman Marcus, Saks Fifth Avenue, all the high-end stores in Dallas, which is a huge fashion, and private parties. And Caroling Troubadours just took off from there. And it was a wonderful, fun, for-profit business.
Yeah. So how did you find you said it was a trio. How did you find the other two people? And were they the same the whole time?
Oh, no. I mean, well, the Dallas core was, but one year I had troops in Dallas, Houston, Los Angeles, and Nashville.
Wow.
So I branched out, and I had friends, musician friends in all of those cities who did the work. I would call and get the performances lined up. And we moved to doing malls and all kinds of venues. And this was before anybody else was doing it. Now it's kind of, it's not unusual to see a caroling group out. But when I did it, I don't know that anyone else was. So it was really, really fun.
Okay. So without naming any names, I got to ask you, what's the weirdest experience that you had while you were doing this, while you were singing, like something just like that you still remember to this day?
Oh my gosh, so many. But we were at the cosmetic counter at Neiman's, and I play the dulcimer, and you have to sit to play the dulcimer.
Right.
So my soprano went and got my a little stool for me from the cosmetic counter. And the whole thing about Music for Seniors was to get the children and the parents and all of us singing together.
Right.
Small little, performances or shared music throughout the store. And actually, that is the whole crux of what Music for Seniors does, is these intimate, shared sing-alongs.
Right.
So anyway, I had finished doing Little Drummer Boy, and somebody asked me about the dulcimer, and I held it up and said, here it is. And I said, would you like to hear another? And they said, yeah. So I backed up and sat down where the stool had been. And in the meantime, she had moved the stool back to where it belonged, which was very courteous. We were not, and I went flat down
on the
floor, just bam. I was like,
oh my goodness.
Oh, Lord. I also once went tumbling down a staircase at a private party with we always started with Deck the Halls, and I would ring the tambourine, and I went deck, and I went boom, 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 and landed in the grandfather clock on the landing. My shoe flew out into the
So
party.
you got to tell me, what was the reaction? Were people, was there gasps? Was there
They were
laughs?
like,
Was there
oh
clapping?
my gosh. Oh, all of that. I mean, first of all, when everybody realized I wasn't hurt and I made some kind of a joke, I don't know. Well, that was starting with a bang. And of course, everybody was looking up like, what is going on?
I was wondering, like, did they think it was actually part of the show, or was it an accident? Like, what was the reaction? So that's interesting. So okay, you provided a good segue there into music for seniors. Having these small, intimate things. So when you came up with this idea, the aha moment, and you decided to do this. So what's the thinking here? Is it to play music for seniors, to have the seniors play music, teach them music? Like, what's the
All of
approach?
that. But it started with the idea that I would enlist single musicians or maybe duos to take live music out into the community wherever seniors congregate. And that would be nursing homes or assisted living or community groups like my mom's day group. She went during the day and then came home. But as the organization grew and as I saw the need for different kinds of programming, I added a concert series. So once a month, we do a free daytime concert for older adults during the day at venues all across the city. So that if you live on the west side, everything's not always over here downtown where you have to drive, but every month the venue changes and they're beautiful venues and a whole variety of, so that's a concert series, but it's free and it's 1 hour and it's during the day. And then we also teach. We do live performance learning labs, ukulele, harmonica. We've done songwriting. The newest was bringing a group in to learn how to make music digitally. But it's all about the older adults being actively engaged in the music. It's not about performing your own material and having everybody go, oh, that's what, no, it's including and drum. We did interactive drumming. The research has really shown there is great value on so many levels for including older adults or anybody sharing music and being engaged in it. Cognitive gain, socialization, joy, tapping memory. There's a whole constellation of benefits and it's just fun, you know?
When you started this, were you worried at all? It's a great idea, obviously, but were you worried about being able to get other people on board to help you do this? Because this is not something you could just necessarily, I mean, you could do it by yourself, but the scale and impact
No.
that you could do is probably very limited. So you really needed help. So were you worried about that? Was there anything else that you were worried about in starting this up?
Well, I wasn't worried, but I knew I needed a lot of help. And the one thing that I did in the design was I did not ask the musicians to do it as voluntary. I built in a stipend from the get-go because it was such important community service and because creatives are so often asked to do things for nothing. And especially in Nashville, you earn a living outside of Nashville as a musician. And this was years ago now because I started this in 2007. But when you move to Nashville, you quickly find that it's hard to find paying gigs unless you're that small studio, elite group that's doing recordings all the time. So I built in a stipend for the musicians. So the musicians, and they were very excited to participate because it's during the day when they're not doing other things. It's a 1 hour commitment and the stipends were generous. They've gotten more generous over the years as we've been able to enlist other partners like the Nashville Musicians Association that has been so helpful in the
Yeah.
funding.
So talk about that. Like, how did you think through how to fund this thing? Because obviously you're not going to ask your target market, the older seniors, to pay. But you mentioned a free concert and everything, so there's no money there. So how did you figure out the ways to fund this?
Well, I had a small, I think it was like $8,000 that, first of all, I was working as a freelance paralegal at the time. And I went to my boss, a very prominent attorney here, Mr. Aubrey Harwell of Neal and Harwell here in Nashville. And I told him my idea. I said, I just knocked on his door one day. Would you listen, tell me what you think about this? And he thought it was a fantastic idea. And he encouraged me to put together my business plan and take it to an established, very well respected senior services agency that already existed and pitch it as an affiliate, a music affiliate, to add to their services. So that's how we started. And in 2014, after developing all the programming and getting the ball rolling, we moved into it being a standalone 501c3 nonprofit arts organization. But we started as an affiliate. So I had a system to work within to begin. But nonprofit funding, you write grants, and I wrote a lot, but that's just storytelling. That's just telling the stories of the benefit. Right. But we have been so blessed with wonderful funders. The National Endowment for the Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, the Metro Nashville Arts Commission, lots of support. There was nothing like it in the community, which was a great way to get people to go, oh,
yeah. Was there anything else that, as you were starting this, that made you nervous and made you question doing the whole thing? What was that?
Well, I never really questioned it because I was passionate about it. And one of my favorite philosophers, Joseph Campbell, says, follow your bliss. And when you do that, when you follow what just fires your soul and makes you excited, the universe lifts you up and doors open that you just don't expect. And that happened all along the way. But I'll tell you what was, people would say, oh, Sarah, at the beginning, how are you going to do this or this or this? And what if this and this? And, maybe you should take this to schools. That's a wonderful idea for children too. So two things. I knew I had to be laser focused on our mission, which was to provide interactive live music opportunities for older adults. And I couldn't veer from that. Eventually, we included an intergenerational component where we included children, but it was with the older adults doing collaborative things. And then somebody said, how are you going to get all this and this accomplished? And I said, if I tried to figure everything out right at the beginning, I would never have taken the first step. I would have been paralyzed. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take it one step at a time and not pay attention to those who throw the monumental task ahead of me in my face all at once, because
right. It's too much. Yeah. It's funny. By the way, you mentioned follow your bliss and a philosopher that said that. I thought that was the B-52s that said that, but we'll go with yours. But what you mentioned there of that monumental task, right? It's this idea of, and a lot of non-entrepreneurs and a lot of entrepreneurs get paralyzed because of this, because you think about, how do you boil the ocean? Well, that's not your task today to boil the ocean. Your task is to get a thimbleful of water and just boil that much. And so, I think that's a great approach that you took, that you said, like, look, I'm I'm going to take today and figure out what I do today, and then figure out, leave tomorrow to be tomorrow's problem, which is a great thing. So thinking about it, so, okay, you've got already a career doing music and you're busy, and, now you're starting a nonprofit, which is not necessarily going to make you money, right? Because that's not the goal, and you're juggling all these things. How did you manage the stress of all of this and trying to get this new thing up off the ground while still having, life's requirements of, paying the bills and family and friends and all of those kinds of things? How did you juggle all that for yourself?
Well, first of all, I was so blessed and still am. If it had not been for my husband, my sweet husband, Mickey McConnell, encouraging me the whole way, and helping me take care of my mom, who was living with us then. Mm-hmm. So, and then the community really embraced the idea. And landing in an already well-established, viable organization, and the executive director really believed in the work we were doing and embraced us, and she used all of her power to introduce me to the community and say, this is great. And so it takes a village. I mean, it really does. And it would have never happened had not I had such wonderful community and personal support. Everybody seemed to really gravitate toward the value of the work. Yeah. And it's Music City. I mean, musicians are one of our city's most amazing creative resources. And this was just a way to tap into that for a whole new kind of programming as civic involvement, as really giving back to our community. And older adults are so often isolated, and they don't have the opportunity to tap into activities that the rest of the community is participating in. I saw that because my mother was living with me, and I had to figure out, and she had Alzheimer's. And music is fantastic for individuals who are struggling with dementia. I mean, it's so good.
Yeah, with all kinds of memory and brain challenges, right? Memory issues, yeah. Brain challenges. Music is one of those things that all of us have listened to since we were young. So
it's magic. Music it is absolutely magical.
So, okay, you've been doing this for a while now, and we haven't even touched upon like how things changed during COVID, because I imagine that was a tough time. Let's talk about that for a minute before I ask you my other question. What happened during COVID? Because you're doing live music with seniors, a population that's highly at risk, obviously, with COVID. Did you keep doing them? Did you go virtual? What did you end up doing?
We pivoted to virtual.
Yeah.
It was all we could do. There was no way we could risk. And there were quarantines, right. We weren't allowed to. So every week we made out a schedule, and I tapped into all the musicians that were also at home.
Right.
And I said, look, every Monday we are going to roll out a new program, video, and I want you to record it wherever you are. Pretend you're there with the older adults that you usually engage with, and just do a program. Talk to them, do sing-alongs. And so we rolled those out, and all the companies and, the assisted living and everybody that we worked with, they would put it up on their big screen in their activity room, and they would socially distance their folks, and they'd watch a Music for Seniors program.
Nice.
It was quite a challenge. And I tell you what, then when we started going back, in the spring of 2021 or whenever people were starting to open up a little bit. We did outdoor concerts. We did courtyard concerts.
Right.
We did, we required that every participant in our organization who wanted to be a part of it, whether they were staff or participating musicians, we required vaccinations because we could not take the risk. And we lost some folks because of that requirement. But my board was adamant.
Which it makes sense. I mean, your entire population audience is very much at risk, especially in those early days when we didn't know so much.
Right.
Okay, so let me ask you the question I was about to ask. So, okay, you've been doing this for a while, or you started it a while ago, and now you've got different leadership and everything. Thinking back over the years, is there something that you could identify that you would do differently in the history? And what is that, if you could, and why?
Oh my gosh.
Just pick one. I know there's a lot. Just pick one.
Okay. As the leader, as the person who's the chief cook and bottle washer and making it all happen, that stress is enormous because I was writing all of the grants, I was hiring the staff, I was creating the programming, and my staff helped me with that. But I waited too long to find an expert to coach me and help me be a better leader.
Yeah.
Because I needed a person to brainstorm with. I needed somebody to help me with that big blue sky imagining that I love so much. And I couldn't really do that with my staff. They were taking care of the programming. You know, they were in their lane doing what they needed to do. And so I would encourage anyone who is at the head of an organization or a company to have a trusted expert that they can meet with on a regular basis, just as a place to unload, to normalize what you're going through, and to help you make better decisions with how you lead the organization.
Yeah, that's great advice. That's great advice. Last question for you. What would you say to somebody that you were talking to that's thinking about taking that leap like you did and starting either a side hustle or starting a new thing like you've done? What advice would you give them?
Don't be deterred by the naysayers. Find those individuals in your life, in your community, who think your idea is really great, and listen to encouraging words and get sound advice. You know, if you're unsure of how to find money, go to people you know who have found money to do things sort of in the lane you're doing it. I wrote a lot of grants to funders originally who didn't fund senior related work. And you know, I went after funding pools that weren't really appropriate, but you learn that as you go because you think everybody's going to love it. But you have to target, you have to be intentional. And I talked about that laser focus, you know, that is I think that's a huge component. Also, number 2, keep a sense of humor about it and find people around you who you can laugh with and talk about it, but you can't take it too seriously or it'll eat you alive.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great advice.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Sarah, this has been fantastic. Where can our listeners find and connect with you online?
Well, they can go to my website, sarahmartinmcconnell.com. They can hear my music on wherever they get streaming, Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, whatever. I have a Sarah Martin McConnell music Facebook page, and they can reach out to me through my website. I'd love to hear from them.
Awesome. Sarah, thanks so much for being on today.
Thank you. It's been a delight. I really appreciate you inviting me on.
Thanks so much. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Side Hustle to Small Business podcast, powered by Hiscox. To learn more about how Hiscox can help protect your small business through intelligent insurance solutions, visit hiscox.com. And to hear more Side Hustle to Small Business stories or share your own story, visit hiscox.com/side hustle to small business. I'm your host, Sanjay Parekh. You can find more about me at my website, sanjayparekh.com.